This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Prokopchuk and this is the Digital Savage Experience. Today I have with me Michelle Oravitz. Michelle is an acupuncturist, Ayurvedic practitioner, and certified hypnotherapist specializing in fertility health. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
So my background's actually in architecture. I worked in New York City and also San Francisco. Had my own imbalances physically for many years and found an acupuncturist who I went to, and ever since I've had treatments from him, he's completely changed my life. Helped me in ways that doctors couldn't help me. Also, kind of as a side effect, and I tell my patients all the time, it's a side effect of acupuncture, is feeling really, really well and mentally as well. And I found that the stressors that usually affected me weren't affecting me as much. And my skin cleared up, things that I didn't really go to him for, but just like everything else kind of got ironed out. So I was so intrigued by that and found that even though I liked architecture and I went into it because of my creativity, it wasn't really speaking to me in the actual real world. And ever since going to, as a patient, becoming so moved by what acupuncture did for me, I always wanted to just go back to school and study either natural medicine or something to help other people. So we moved to Florida, went to school for Ayurvedic medicine, which is an ancient Indian medicine. I studied that for 2 years, then got pregnant, started a family. And then, which by the way, had I not gone to an acupuncturist, one of my issues would have been fertility because my cycles were off. Everything was off. That was like the reason I went. So kind of full circle. So my kids got a little older. I actually was selling art online because like I said, my background's in art, architecture, selling art online so I can stay home with the kids. And then once they both went to elementary school, I enrolled to go back to school to get my master's degree in Oriental medicine. And so I studied that, went to school, graduated, started my practice, and then eventually just always seemed to be drawn to fertility health. And while I was doing that, I also realized with patients that people would do pretty well, but then go back to the same types of patterns, or they do well after coming to me and then they kind of go back. And I realized that a lot of that had to do with belief and mindset. So I was really intrigued about going back to school or going back to study hypnotherapy and adding that into my acupuncture treatment. So to have acupuncture points to help almost open the consciousness. There's ones for the crown area and then one in between the eye to really calm the person with the points and then doing hypnosis during that time. And I found that it's been incredible. So that's pretty much my journey. It's something that for some reason I've been really, really drawn to. And that's what got me here today.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it connects because me and my wife have been doing infertility treatments for about 3 years. And I know the stress aspect and I know they suggest acupuncture also, usually before the actual procedure, like IVF, obviously like a long-term treatment would be ideal or, multiple sessions. But in terms of our situation, we've had to deal with 5 miscarriages. We're still doing it, but the majority of the money is out of pocket at this point. Insurance doesn't kind of cover multiple cycles, so it kind of connects with a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really sorry to hear that. It's horrible. It's really horrible. And I've seen so many people going through this. It's grueling. It really like so tough because you're going, usually, typically when we want something in life, we go there, we go after it, we do the work and we get it. But in this case, you're out of money and you're spending so much energy and so much hope. And then having to go through the loss is really, really traumatic.
Yeah, it's an emotional hit every time. And you hear from the, the fertility doctor that, I don't know what happened. It should have worked this time, or we changed this variable, or we reduced this and added that, and it should have worked. But it's like, at the end of the day, like you said, it's very emotionally grueling. And obviously the financial toll adds to, the aspect as well. And adds the stress, because for the whole procedure and getting pregnant and moving forward in your cycle, stress and maintaining stress and keeping as low as possible is very important for the health of the pregnancy. So
yeah, absolutely. So what was what ended up happening? Did you guys have any children, or?
We actually are foster parents, foster to adopt. Last cycle we did was last year, and we hope to do another cycle in March. We had an egg retrieval done before we started all the IVFs and IUIs. So we have, I believe, like 6 or 7 embryos left. Oh,
that's amazing. Yeah, that's actually a really good number.
Yeah, so we're going to try 1 or 2 more times, and this time maybe because we haven't done multiple embryos yet, and because the doctor doesn't want to do that because it's a higher chance for multiple pregnancies. Yeah. But we may try in terms of the next cycle to have more than 1 embryo, and hopefully, God willing, it works this time.
I mean, listen, if you're okay with having more than 1, it's really a personal decision.
Yeah, I mean, get them all out of the way at one shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's amazing that you guys are fostering. It's wonderful. Yeah, it's definitely, but I'll tell you, you have a good number because I've been doing this work, and that's typically that's not the number I'm used to hearing.
Yeah, we've had a good amount, and I think the ones that passed the grade and then were fertilized was, I believe, 11 or so. So it's usually higher. Some people say sometimes it's like 1 or 2 embryos that were able to be fertilized, and if they were genetically tested without any genetic abnormalities and that kind of thing.
Did you guys get genetically tested?
Yeah, we did whatever the insurance didn't cover to check all the embryos, and then check our history as well, like genetic makeup. If we combine, if there was any like outliers, that if we combine, that it would be an active gene or whatever. And
MTHFR as well for your wife?
It was like 3 years ago, so I don't necessarily know. I just know that
it's really important because a lot of people who miscarry tend to be that, and then they can't have folic acid. They have to have folate, methylated folate. So make sure that she has that. If you want, I'll send you a prenatal that I recommend.
Yeah, sure. And like the other thing tied in there, my wife has endometriosis, so that kind of couples the situation as well.
Yeah. If you want, I'll send you outside of this. I'll send you a couple of suggestions.
No,
for
that'd
sure
be great.
that can help. Yeah. So definitely. I mean, as you know, like it's such a tough process, and I just have, I guess, an affinity or a sensitivity to people going through this, because nobody can really imagine what it's like unless they're going through it, of the highs and lows and the ups and downs, and then the not wanting to get too excited when things go well, and then so yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So what motivates you to succeed?
Well, it's kind of a couple of things. It's interesting because I've been meditating for many years, like over 20 years. And before meditation, I was never a great student growing up. And when I was younger, I never really considered myself as one of those like go-getters and people that like really are top of their class and that kind of thing. And then I think from meditating, my mind has changed and how I see the world and what I've overcome on my own. And when I went back to school, I actually graduated valedictorian. And I love just challenging myself. I think that I don't ever want to stop challenging myself or working and growing. One of the things that motivates me to succeed are my kids. I want them to see, they're both girls, and I want them to see me as a role model, to show them what you can do with your life and what you can do and how you can grow. And I just feel like it's so much fun to keep, recreating yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in any career, when you get to a point and you become complacent, if you're an individual or a company, it, stagnates growth and kind of is a killer of ideas. So you constantly have to keep, like you said, redefining yourself, learning and becoming better in your craft.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing that motivates me is I really love inspiring people. It's something that I've always loved, to be inspired. And now as I'm learning, I really want to inspire. It's just fun for me. It's exciting to be able to have conversations even with my patients and then spark something in their eye and they're like, I didn't see it that way, and just inspire. And there's something about that energy that I'm really drawn to.
Yeah, it's really rewarding, and when you're giving back or you're adding value, it's that much better.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's one weakness that you may have had that you've seen in yourself in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
So one of my weaknesses always in the past has been focus. And the reason being is because I'm a very highly creative individual. Typically, as you may know, highly creative individuals have a hard time in the general school system. And so I always had a hard time just kind of sitting and doing what was expected of me, because my mind will always come up with ideas. But that's, after years of figuring out how to manage that, I've learned to use that in my favor. Because I'm so creative, I'll come up with ideas that will reinvent myself or my work, or just come up with ideas throughout the day, even if I'm dealing with challenges with patients' fertility and how we can address it. So my creativity and the fact that I have so many different ideas is actually a blessing. It's just a matter of figuring out how to manage it so that it doesn't get me to be too unruly and have my mind go all over the place. So I've learned through discipline and through meditation to harness that energy in a more productive way.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like you said, people that are creative, I think the traditional education system doesn't necessarily do justice to, people that are creative, or people that should focus on their creativity and not necessarily things that they'll never use.
Yeah.
And, even college or institutions, obviously you have to go to a formal education for things like medicine and, other STEM careers, but there's certain things where you should be doing what you're passionate in, and that experience, trumps a piece of paper in terms of a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's definitely that. And then it's this balance, we in Chinese medicine call the yin and the yang. The yin is the very feminine. It's a little bit more slow moving. It's more introvert. And the yang is extrovert, sun, hot, energy, male. So it's really within all of nature. It's within all of us. And it's within every single aspect of our life. So with the creativity, I learned how to kind of bring a little bit more groundedness to it to make it work optimally and kind of have it in both. But it's interesting, when I was growing up, like we were just talking about with school, what happens is with a lot of creative individuals that don't do as well in the system, they internalize it and then they start to label themselves or believe certain things, which is what happened to me. But I overcame it over time. I said, no, that doesn't have to be the case. And a book that actually really changed my life around the same time that I went to my acupuncturist was the book The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And that's where any blame that I had on my parents or growing up or whatever went out the window. And I finally took, it really does get you to take complete responsibility over your life and to realize that you are 100% a creator of everything.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one piece of advice you have for the audience, personal or professional?
My piece of advice is don't lose your spark. It's very easy to get caught up in life's demands and then just be in reactive mode. So, the phone call rings, the phone rings, you pick up the call, somebody tells you to go somewhere, you go, you're just kind of, your whole life becomes dictated by the demands of the craziness, which is today's world. It's important to actually take some charge and proactivity to either create self-care, journal, do something that really lights you up, and don't lose that spark, because it's very easy for that to become dull if you're just in this reactivity of answering to demands and not answering to your own soul.
Yeah, I agree. And it gets, frustrating when you're dealing with all these things, or you're putting out fires, or, things you're dealing with, either your everyday life, your professional life, and they all compound, and it gets to a point where, you're almost suffocating. So I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. Without a doubt.
So I really appreciate you coming on today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.thewholesomelotus.com, and I'm also on Instagram, and it's at the Wholesome Lotus Fertility, and I'm also on Facebook, but all of those actually are linked from my website. So basically my website has everything.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk from Roman Prokopchuk's Digital Savage Experience podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, so that's always good. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.